Oh my goodness, there I am. What is going on? Oh my goodness. So you're ready to sell the property. You're ready for things to move forward. You're done with being a tenant, toilets, termites, tenants. You're done with being a landlord, I should say. But you have a tenant that's in the property. Maybe it's a family friend, maybe it's a family member, or maybe it's just a tenant that you just weren't able to, uh, maybe you have a lease still in place. So how do you still sell the property in North Carolina if you still have a tenant in place? That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you some things to consider. And yeah, I'm Courtney Rollins with Life in Transitions Experts podcast, helping folks through some of their biggest transitions in life. Quite often, we're talking about probate and estate planning and helping folks generate income and wealth through those real estate in those spaces, as well as making those processes as smooth and easy as possible. And so often, there is property involved. And so often the property does need to be, or the stakeholders decide to sell, whether they want to release, get funds to pay off debt or to distribute to heirs, or there's many other reasons. We're here to try to provide as many solutions as possible, really catered to that person or to your situation. If you are a practitioner and you're looking for ideas, you're at the right place. And I must say, also, it would love for your support. So any type of feedback is also always welcome. Uh, s- Hit the subscribe button, that like, that follow, all that great stuff. As I've said before, it does help them or help the algorithm to say, hey, this is valuable content for folks. And this, like so many other content, is coming directly from a specific seller. I was actually talking to someone today. They reached out to me this morning, came into the office actually this morning, and they are having a challenge selling a property. The gentleman's an executor of an estate, and his brother, unfortunately, um, well, his brother was living there, but his brother, even though they've gave him fair understanding that they were going to need to sell the estate based on the wishes of his mother, their mother who passed away, and it's been about 4 or 5 months. Now they're coming into some resistance, which of course is understandable. No one is in the business of kicking anyone out of any home. However, there are realities that the property, this property particular one had a reverse mortgage, and if they did not pay the debt, then the bank was going to receive the property anyways. And there's debt in the estate, and there's inheritance that needs to be unlocked. So hopefully, this is an opportunity for their family member to find a place that fits his lifestyle, fits his needs, or gives him the opportunity to, move forward and find that right place for him. And so I thought about this and said, hey, let me go back and share some conversations or some tips that may be helpful. And I see someone saying hello, Maurice. So that's my middle name. So I'm sure that's my mama. She's one of the few people that call me Maurice. So I'm gonna say hello back to you, mother dear. Hope you are well, and thanks for checking this out. So let's check it out. Tenant in place, uh, tenant in property you want to sell though. Here's what you need to consider. Number one, make sure you review your lease agreement. If you do not have a lease agreement, you are subject to the laws of that state. So make sure you check out squatter rights laws because there are a lot of laws that are in place that support people who are have set in the property and started living in the property without a legal document or a document that defines the relationship. So check that out. There's still ways that you can that can support you as the either the person who controls the estate or the landowner, or the property owner. So make sure you check that out. If you are a tenant, you want to check that out as well so that you can know what your rights are. So that's why it's important to have a strong document in place, regardless if it's your mother, brother, sister, whomever it is. Make sure you have some legal document in place because that's what it's there for. So that when challenges do come up, everyone knows what the next step should be and no one should be surprised. So review your lease agreement. Also, have open communication as early and as quickly and as soon as possible. One thing that we do when you are, depending on the laws of your state, if someone's late on their rent and it's within a certain amount of days, you need to have that notice for eviction to go out immediately if that's what your state requires. Regardless of, and I wouldn't take partial payment either. This isn't really a conversation about being a landlord, but you have to follow the rules so that there's respect for the rules, one, as well as communicating what's happening. If you're going to be selling the property, in some states, you need to go ahead and let and depending on the lease, you need to let them know so that the tenant has the right of first refusal in many places. So it's very important to communicate what your plans are. It doesn't mean you have to uh, give all your business away, but open communication is just thing to is a respectful thing to do. It can help alleviate some of the challenges that may come down the road. All right. Um, yeah, timing is very key when you plan to sell the property. Make sure if it is in probate in North Carolina, you do have to make sure that you have uh, put certain things in place, like the notice to creditors has to be at least filed. That affidavit that the notice was filed has to be in place in many large estates, and that's why it's important also to make sure you have. If you need support with a real estate attorney, which I'm not giving legal advice, just sharing my opinion, or financial advice, just sharing my opinion. I can point you in directions of some awesome folks that I've worked with and that I continue to network with, so they can help you out so that you can know when you are able to sell. Also, making sure that you if you're thinking about selling, I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, I'm selling tomorrow. If your lease is, make sure that you know this is a conversation so that the tenant at least has some proper time to make arrangements. That's what you would probably want. And it's the right thing to do. There are some incentives that you can provide for cooperation. Sometimes the actual buyer that comes in may be able to provide some incentives like cash for keys or making sure that in the actual agreement that the tenant is allowed to stay over. I've actually had several properties where we've purchased and we've made sure that the tenant stayed in 2, 3 months and that they have a lease, they're paying things of that nature, but there are certain incentives because again, we're not in the business of kicking people out of a home they're living in, and I don't think any seller wants to do that as well. And so yeah, it's very important. It's also important with that open communication, number five, to make sure that you have the opportunity to give your buyers the chance to show and inspect. If you are listing this in a more traditional route, you'll definitely need that communication. If you decide to go with an investor like sort of like us as professional home buyers, quite often they'll be able to minimize the amount of time they need to get in there, uh, and but still somehow they need to be able to get in to see what they're actually purchasing. And if you don't provide that, then expect to really to provide a super discount to trade in a lot of equity for someone to buy a property, not only as is, which is normally the case for cash buyers, um, but also sight unseen. So those are just things to consider. And make sure that it is well maintained. Again, that's sometimes you may be able to trade equity again for a property that is damaged or not as well maintained. Renters, there's all different type of people in the world, but someone who owns a property usually shows a little more pride of ownership than renters traditionally. So you'll definitely want to make sure you get in there so you can attract as many buyers as possible, clean it out. And if you aren't in that space to do that, or it's not as convenient, then cash buyer um, may be the route for you, as opposed to listing it as is or listing it on in the traditional sense. And you may consider again selling to an investor or a cash buyer like myself or like folks at the State Pro Service, because we are professionals at buying the property, and we are able to take on the risk. We know that there are certain risks that come with getting property because we're in the business. We make our money on the buy. We have to get the property at a discount. There shouldn't be anything hidden agendas about that. But in order to do that, you have to earn that by usually solving problems. And sometimes having a tenant in place can be a challenge or a problem, particularly if there's wear and tear, particularly if you can't get into access, particularly if they are deciding not to leave and you're stuck in the middle of an eviction process or unable to even get that going. All right. If you need support with that or just a holistic approach to probate or to properties, feel free to reach out to the State Pro Service, stateproservice.com, 919-341-1992. Like the hub in the wheel of all the different services that are needed to get you from A to Z when it comes to probate, estate, dealing with the property and the stuff. All right. So, Courtney Rollins with the Life and Transitions Experts podcast. That's LITE. Let your light shine. Cheers. Bye, mama.